I remember a spiritual director that I had in Indianapolis had said that my desire for brotherhood or for like deep abiding friendship is, he says, you realize that that's never going to be met. And so like kind of like get used to disappointment, which was like, ow. But he was just saying, I want to set you up for success, not for failure. So
welcome to the Hey Brother podcast, where Catholic men share about real struggles. I'm Nick Kovatch, your host, a Catholic psych mentor and the founder of Crafted for More, a mentorship practice dedicated to helping men live more radically free lives. Each week, I sit down with a man to hear his story about how brotherhood has shaped him, the struggles he's facing, and where he wants to grow. In addition to our weekly interviews, I share conversations with my brother Mitch. Subscribe and follow so we can walk this journey together. We want your help to build a stronger, authentic Catholic brotherhood. Welcome back to the Hey Brother podcast. Today I'm joined by guest Nic Kovatch, not to be confused, two Nicks coming at you on this episode. Nic is a husband and father, 5 kids, exciting, expecting one more kiddo, which is...
Well, 4 with expecting the 5th.
Okay, I screwed that up. expecting the 5th kid.
Yes.
That's the correct way to say it.
Yes.
It's great to be having you join on the podcast.
Yep.
Nic,
glad to be here.
You've been friends since college years. You were a campus minister at Arizona State for a long while. 7 years?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
6 years, and then you most recently have been working for Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the position title for that?
My technical title is community engagement specialist, aka like I'm the outward facing person. I'm the person who's going to sell and kind of help people to do Galilee. Okay. So
what is Galilee for people who are like tuning in? They may have caught Jacob's interview.
Yeah.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
So Galilee is a prayer exercise that helps you deepen your capacity for prayer. So, it's a simple process. It helps you to grow both with your love of Scripture, and then also I think one of the huge fruits of it is friendship, because it really does breed friendship, because you're talking about the things that matter in your life, your faith. So then you grow deeper with the person that you're walking with. So
yeah. And that's definitely, because we did Galilee for like a year and a half or less, give or take.
We did it until I switched to a different job, and then it was like, I can't fit this in.
yeah
So
logistically it didn't work out, but that was like one of the fruits that I experienced. There was like a deepening friendship there, and because prior to that we had known each other at Wright State. While I was a student, you were campus minister, and then Jacob and Galilee. I don't know how much you were part of the early Galilee Saturday morning groups.
Yeah, I mean, from what Jacob has shared, apparently I'm like one of the like OG members. Okay. So supposedly, and I'm like, I didn't think that I was, but okay, it seemed established when he started talking about it with me. So.
And there was like a big invite at the beginning of that to like bring people together, and that's cool. It's cool now, like. Fast forward, I'm sure you would have never guessed, years ago that you'd be working for Galilee. What's that been like?
It's been all right. So, Jacob is a unique individual. So he can be difficult to work with sometimes. But I love him. He's my brother. And so,
brothers are hard to work with sometimes.
Yeah, they can be. As I'm sure you're aware with your brother Mitch in this podcast. Yeah. So, Jacob, working with Galilee is really great in regards to, I really enjoy that prayer is a hallmark of my job. Like I am required to pray, and I'm like, it's nice to have that as like, no. Like when I go to pray, I'm doing my job. Yeah. And then coupled with it is I enjoy that I get to encourage others and help them to walk on their journey as well of prayer.
That's interesting to me, because like I know your background a little bit, like career-wise, and it's been in the church in different capacities. Yeah. And so like the hallmark being one of the hallmarks of the job being prayer, does that feel different than church jobs, or?
It does, because, I mean, it wasn't the case at the chapel, because when I was working at the chapel, absolutely, it wasn't ever viewed as contrary to my job. Like when I was at mass, when I was praying a holy hour, like, nope, that's part and parcel of what you're supposed to do. But every other place that I've been, it's more like, well, as long as you're getting your work done, then you can pray, but like, don't really count it as time.
Interesting.
And it's like, how do you expect me to do my job if I'm not praying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of weird because I know, and I've had friends who have worked in various ministry jobs as well that are echo the same mentality of that. It's like, oh no, you can go to daily mass, just don't count it as hours. Be like,
yeah.
Okay, that seems odd. But,
yeah. Interesting. So, yeah. It's funny because like from a state level, the church is probably mandated to some level to give you a break for smoking, right? And that counts towards work hours. But it's like, if you go to mass, maybe not count those. It's like,
church world can be scary sometimes. So
that's interesting. Well, it's cool. It's like one of the hallmarks is like, intentionally honoring that space of your own kind of growth and relationship with the Lord.
Yeah,
it makes sense from what I know about Galilee, right? That's the goal, right? Is to help other people experience a deeper interior life. Yeah. So, and you've been working for them a year now?
It'll be a year come, say, July.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's it like working on a smaller team than, I guess you kind of got that at the chapel a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. The smallness of it is not so much weird. Because I actually prefer smaller teams. I think it's better. Because you're more likely to operate off the same vision then, because it doesn't get diversified.
Yeah.
But then one of the hardest parts for me at the beginning was the idea that I don't have a brick and mortar place. Like, that's work.
Yeah.
It's, well, what are you doing work wise? So like, it's been hard to kind of make that transition, transition in my head of like, when am I working? When am I not working?
Yeah. I think it's a really 2025 kind of issue.
Like,
it's specific to some jobs, but I think a lot of guys out there I've been seeing that more, like where like half my work, if not most of my work's done from home. Like that, I made that transition when I switched to mentorship. I got my small little garage office that I do my work out of, and that's work. It helps. There's a couple doors between my work and and home, but like, I think that's an interesting thing, and a lot of guys could probably relate to in today's world. Even if it's not like a physical space, it's like that boundary of like, here's where work starts. Here's where it ends. For ministry in particular too, like there's probably added weight.
It's one that I think it's been okay for me, largely because the way that I've worked in the church, I've always viewed that line as very blurry, and I'm okay with that line being blurry, because the vast majority of the roles that I've been in for the church have been one that I'm like, you want to recognize that my life is oriented towards the Lord. And so if that can't be seen or known, then I'm struggling to do my job. So like at the chapel, in one sense, it's like I was quote unquote always on, because it's like anyone could text me any time of the day and be like, yeah, if I was available, I would text back. If I wasn't available, then I wouldn't text back. But like, but I liked that because that's more, I think that's more akin to what the early church would have been, is like, I'm living life with you, and that's how I'm helping you to grow in your faith, so that you see that. And so like, I know that there was kids at the chapel, college kids or college students. Sorry, I shouldn't call them kids. But that were kind of like integrated into our family, that knew our family. And I viewed that as important, that the regulars at the chapel should have regularly seen Jamie, and at least when I started, Mel and Gabe. So, yeah. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, the boundaries of work life, ministry stuff. It's good, but let's like backtrack though a little bit to like, so you and Jamie have been married for 14 years? Is that
no
10 years?
Let's see. We were married in 2014, so
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm something I think I conflate because I know Jacob's been married for that long, at least.
He's been married for longer. I think he might have been married for 14 years because I remember they got married, I think, while he was in grad school, if he went to grad school.
Okay.
Maybe. But I know. So I met Jamie when I was, 26?
Okay.
So I was already outside of grad school by that time.
Yeah.
So.
And how long until you guys got married?
So I met her
dunk, 6 months.
I mean, it was quick. It was quick. So I met her fall of 2012, and then we were married in February of 2014.
Fall 2012, February. Of
so year and a half.
Yeah.
From meeting her to marrying her.
Nice. Where'd you guys meet?
Indianapolis. So we met through the young adult community. So I was in a formation house for men. She was in a formation house for women. Like, formation is loose. It's more of, they were houses that the Archdiocese of Indianapolis set aside for men and women to authentically live out the Catholic life.
Okay.
So it was more like, because at first they wanted to try to be like, oh yeah, this is for women discerning religious life, and this is for men discerning priesthood. And then they pretty quickly were like, yep, nope, we can't make that requirement. So it was just like, who wants to live in these houses? And so I was living in the guy's house, she was living in the girl's house.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up meeting, because at that time, the house that I was in was right next door to the women's house, which...
That's convenient.
Extremely convenient. So yes, I literally dated / married the girl next door. So
yes, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you guys both are from not Indianapolis, right? You guys,
correct.
You're from.
I'm from South Bend, Indiana.
South Bend, yeah.
But Jamie at least grew up in the Archdiocese of Indianapolis.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why she went to Indy after she did Focus.
Okay.
Because she knew, like, it's the big city. I have a good chance of finding a job. I think she ended up getting a job at, it was Party City, and she was the graphic designer for them.
Okay.
Nice. But yeah.
That's fantastic.
So
you guys got married when you were 28? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that, yeah.
27, 28, somewhere.
I always have a hard time, like, pinpointing, like, wait, when were dates? Like, I can remember the specific date of things, but in regards to, like, how old were you then? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I wasn't keeping track of those things, so.
Yeah, were you guys, like, set on, like, living in Indy at any given point in time, or, like, how'd you guys get to Dayton?
Okay. For a second, I was like, wait, you said Dayton. As in the city, not Dayton, as in like a truncated version of dating. But is, so we were dating in Indianapolis, and I was moving from a job like, I met her in the fall, we got engaged in the spring, and then in the spring is when I was leaving my job. I was teaching at a high school at the time, and I was like, I don't want to teach anymore. Or at least not in that particular school. So I was looking at other jobs, and ended up, I was hoping to stay in Indianapolis because we both loved Indy.
Yeah.
But I ended up finding a job working at a parish in Cincinnati.
Okay. Because
Jamie's family is from the greater Cincinnati area. So Indiana, but the greater Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
So that was why I was like, oh, well, great. Cincinnati works. It's close to our family. And I was like, it's not far from my folks. So then we moved down to Cincy. Like, I moved down just before we got married. She moved in. And then I was there at a parish for 3 years before I found the job at Wright State. And then that's what brought us up to Dayton. Okay. So, yeah. And it was actually Jamie was the one who encouraged me to apply for the Wright State job. So, because I was at that point, I was already like, I'm tired of applying to places and stuff like this. And Jamie goes, but this would be perfect for you. Fine, I guess I'll apply.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I think it was maybe like my second year at Wright State. When you started, I'm trying to remember.
I started fall of 2017.
sometime.
I was gonna say, were you ever there with Jenna Leg?
So Renee was.
Okay.
So that's what blurs my mind. I'm
Okay.
like, I don't know when I was
Yeah,
on
yeah.
campus with
Yeah.
Renee for.
Yeah, so Jenna was there for I think 5 years, and then after Jenna was Sister Karen for a year,
Okay.
and then I was hired.
Okay. Gotcha. The Wright State campus minister
Yeah, yeah,
tracks.
yep. Well, and then after me is John Davis.
John Davis,
so-
who was a student.
who was a student.
Yeah.
He like honestly, in all senses of the word, you could say that he's my protege, because it really was like he was an intern for us. Not to mention too is at one point he was flabbergasted and was like, "Wait, you can do this for a living?" He goes, "I want your job."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, cool it, man. I like my job." And then it's
Yeah.
funny because he ended up getting my job.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Oh, the legacy of the Wright State campus minister.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what maybe diving into a little bit of like experience of Brotherhood. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And you didn't do Echo, did you? Or was that
I did.
Part? You
Yeah.
did do
Yeah.
Echo. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a part of the journey too to hash out and to look at, but Brotherhood in general might encompass a lot of that. But
Yes and no. I mean, there's definitely aspects of Brotherhood in Echo, but
yeah.
it's weird because you're not as connected with the Echo people as with, I would imagine, like Net or Focus or other organizations, because I mean, it's really intense for the summer with the people that you're with, but unless you're talking about the people that you lived in community with for the year, then you don't necessarily have like super tight bonds. And I still like, so in my community in Indianapolis, which is where I was serving for Echo, so we had my first year there, three guys and one girl. So we had me, Joe, and John, and then Natalie.
Okay.
And then John stepped down his first year because he was like, nah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So it was just me, Joe, and Natalie for the second year. And I would say like I became really good friends with Joe and Natalie for sure. Okay. I wouldn't say that Joe and I are necessarily brothers per se.
Yeah.
But he's definitely somebody that like both I have fond memories of Joe and Natalie.
How would you define a brother? That's been a question that's been approached a couple times on the podcast. But
yeah. Well, I don't know how I would define it necessarily, primarily because there are kind of, I guess, 3 classifications in my head for the term brother.
Okay.
Well, actually 4, if you include the religious brother.
Sure.
But so there's brother in the sense that literally anyone who's a man in the world is a brother because he is my brother in Christ. Therefore, I should treat him, as I should treat all human beings. And then there's the kind of like next step brother, in which I will refer to a lot of the people who are acquaintances or friends of mine as brother. Like I'll put it in a text if I'm communicating with somebody, be like, hey, I'm praying for you, brother, or all those different things. And so that's more of a reminder or clue for me to like, there should be some form of intimacy between me and this person because they are connected to me. They are my acquaintance. They are my friend. And then there's the highest form of brotherhood that I think of as like, no, these are the people that I've suffered with, that I've walked with, that I'm going to trust that if I ever face dire circumstances, they would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting too, because in preparing for this episode, like one of the questions that you had asked, like, was brotherhood, and in particular, like the good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, I remember a spiritual director that I had in Indianapolis had said that my desire for brotherhood, or for like deep abiding friendship is he says, you realize that that's never going to be met, right? Like he kind of like
Interesting.
tempered my view of it, saying like, this desire is absolutely beautiful and amazing, but nobody's going to hit it.
Yeah.
And so like, kind of like get used to disappointment, which was like, ow. But he was just saying, I want to set you up for success, not for failure. So I don't want you to hold this expectation as in, don't think that it's realistic that somebody's actually going to hit that. Mm-hmm. But yes, you should strive and push people towards that ideal.
Interesting.
And so
can you break down the ideal? Because I'm curious. I'm sure guys are curious out there.
Yeah. So there's a level of intimacy, and I hate that our culture has like so screwed up that term intimacy.
Right.
But there's a level of intimacy that we should experience with our brothers and with those people that we love, that we care about. That I should be able to share the depths of who I am, the things that hurt, the things that make me feel good. Like I should be able to share fully my life with somebody else, so much so that in one sense they reflect, in a certain sense, the love between God the Father and God the Son. Like that's kind of the love, the intimacy that I want with a brother, in which it's like, I know that like I can share anything and he's going to receive absolutely everything. He's not going to judge. He's going to be like, yeah, we should be striving for that. Like this, like, yeah, I don't know. I always struggle with describing the ideal, because since I haven't seen it or experienced it yet, I can't really say what it is.
Yeah.
But I know that there are things that I desire and intimacies that I desire with men in authentic brotherhood that I've never experienced.
Yeah.
And granted, there are guys in my life that I would say have come close, that I would say are my brothers, or are my...
That third tier.
Yeah. that tier of like, I trust that like if the crap hit the fan, I could call them and they would be there in a moment. And there's one in particular that whenever I think about him, I'm like, he's somebody that I know would never challenges me to be better than I am, but he is also, he will be the first to admit that he doesn't have the answers, and he's not supposed to, but he knows that Christ does, and he'll always point me back to Christ.
That's good.
Yeah. He was awesome. He was my friend in Indianapolis, and he was the best man in Jamie and I's wedding, and godfather to Melanie. So like, yeah, still very much a part of my life. But like, I remember there was a time where I was going through a really bad breakup in Indianapolis, and like I knew that I could come to him and talk to him about it, and he wasn't giving the like platitudes of like, there's other fish in the sea, or like all those like dumb, stupid lines that people give of like, I want to make you feel bad because I don't like how you're like, your pain hurts me experiencing it, and I'm not comfortable with this, so I'm going to basically come up with a way of shutting down your pain.
Yeah.
He never did that. He was like, I'm gonna sit with you in your pain, and I'm like, yeah, it sucks, and I'm sorry that feels that way, and I'm not gonna try to I'm not gonna give you like a candy pill to make you feel better.
That's awesome. I think that's something that we as men like can embrace a lot more, myself included. Like when it's so easy to like itch that scratch, or like go after that temptation of like, oh shit, like this person's in pain, like I don't want them to feel pain. Like and like we jump in with those platitudes or whatever it is that try to make it better. But to have a brother who's actually like, no, like this sucks, like it's okay, let's let's sit with this, like together. You're not alone in this pain, because essentially that's what happens when somebody does give us that like cliche answer or whatever it is that's like supposed to make us feel better, like it isolates us more than makes us feel better, because it's like all of a sudden, okay, you don't understand what I'm going through. I guess I'm in this alone, right? Like,
Yeah.
but to have a brother who like is like, no, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
let's just sit in that. This is
Yeah.
worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it makes me think, I had a friend recently who going through a rough time. His second son, there was a lot of complications in the pregnancy, and he was having, in a certain sense, like an existential crisis about things. And like, he even asked the question, is God punishing my son for my sins? And I'm like, no, absolute no, full stop. Like, do not go down that road. But I remember before he had texted me that we had gotten together for something, and I had told him, like, the real mark of how to deal with suffering is to ultimately say, I'm going to put my faith on the line with you. So if you're struggling, if you are hurt, if you're in pain, and you're crying out to God, like, why is this happening? If I'm actually going to have compassion with you, if I'm going to suffer with you, which is what compassion means, then I have to actually literally enter into your pain and ask God the exact same question. Why? Why are you doing this, God? To what end? And so I had told him that. And so, like, in one sense, I was like, I don't have an answer, but I'm here begging God the same question of, like, yeah, why are there complications with your son? Like, why is his life possibly going to end here before he's even born? Like, yeah. So,
yeah, that's like the hardest. Yeah, it's good to wrestle with that question and to be able to wrestle with him, because it's like, my mind wants to go down that rabbit hole, because it's just like, anytime we encounter suffering, that's when we start to ask these questions and start to, like, even leap to these conclusions. And like good on you for like, being able to, like, no, like, this is not how God works. like no. This is wrong. Like, he's not punishing you for your past sins by causing your son suffering. Like, that's not what's going on here. But like, when we're faced with that amount of suffering, it's like, we just start asking, like why is this happening? We try to draw conclusions, and like, almost as difficult as it is to sit with silence, because I think, well, silence probably forces us to sit with our own uncomfortableness, right? So suffering in that, but like the same could be said, like, with suffering. Like, it's hard to sit in silence, it's hard to sit in suffering, and like, to be okay with not having the answer. And it's like, if you can get the answer and find alleviation, great. Like, go take an ibuprofen. You're
right.
Like fantastic. But it's so hard to like sit through suffering, and it sounds like you did that in that example. But is there other areas in life that like come to mind as we're talking about suffering?
So one of the things I know we've talked about it a little bit, because we were talking about it when we were doing Galilee together. But Catholic mindfulness, and I know that's, part and parcel of what you're doing, and we read the book together. But like, one of the things that like, reading that book combined with other like podcasts and stuff that I'd listened to was really helpful, is that as we face suffering, I think so often we want to numb the pain. We don't want to deal the pain. We don't want to force it. And I have come to realize that, like, more often than not, it's actually, if you just sit in it for a while, you recognize that you don't have to react. You don't have to cover it. You just have to be in it. And that's okay. Because whenever it was that, I can't remember, because I kept using this analogy a lot with Jamie, because when I was telling her what I was feeling and what was going on with me, is I would describe it as like, because I'm a very emotional guy. Like, I have I'm not one of those people who like has like stunted emotional growth. I'm like, no, I'm very much in touch with what's going on interiorly.
Yeah.
And
It could be an emotional guy.
yeah. And so, well, I'm freely able to admit that I weep at a lot of films.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, films is like your sixth love
oh,
language.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so the analogy that I used with talking with Jamie was that a lot of times when I experience pain, especially because like when I feel pain, like I feel pain. Like there's never a like, oh, that was just a scratch that hurt a little. It's like, no, it's deep, it's abiding. Which is, it's like sitting in a sea of glass. And most people are like, oh, that sounds like really peaceful, and be like, no, I don't mean like sea of glass as in like there's a glass surface and it looks like glass and it's reflecting. No, I mean like sitting in a sea of glass, meaning shards of glass.
Yeah.
And that there is a tide. And so like every movement brings more excruciating pain because of the fact that like you're getting stabbed by more things and cut by more glass. But it's like, I always think of it as like, just like how in the ocean, even the constant ebb and flow of the waves, there's a peace to that motion because it's the same. It's like, you know, you listen to the, you know, waves at the ocean, and it's like, it always, the tide comes in at almost a regular, like you can almost set your watch by how the tide comes in.
Yeah.
Same way that in the ocean. So like in a certain sense, like I'm just like, I always imagine myself sitting in a sea of glass and just feeling the pain, but just that bob, that like ebb and flow, the bob and motion of, yeah. So like I would describe her. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm in my sea of glass. And she's like, I'm sorry. It sucks. Why are you there? I'm like, because I am. And that's how I feel things. But more often than not, if I could just like sit there and just be there and like, yeah, this is what the pain feels like.
Yeah.
Then it was easier. Cause I know one of the things that you had said in the prep for the interview was like, what can you improve on? And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that one's really hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, probably to be able to respond to things rather than react, because it's so easy to just be like, this hurts, great, I'm going to go do something to not deal with this.
Yeah.
But it's so much better to be able to say, okay, let me sit, let me feel this, let me process this. Then let me choose what I want to say, what I want to do, rather than just, you know, kind of like, okay, because in a certain sense, to have pain in any way and then to react right away is in one sense kind of like, it's like my 4-year-old or my 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. Like, give me what I want now.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, because it's not good for you. Be like, but like, you do know that if you gave them that thing, the tantrum would stop.
Yeah.
And you're like,
right.
So in a certain sense, us responding out of reaction rather than response is infantile because we're throwing a tantrum. And so we're soothing ourselves by giving ourselves something pleasing.
Yeah.
So,
and it makes it okay for a minute, but it doesn't actually like
right.
solve anything. It's I love that analogy because it's like, because if you do start to fight like in that sea of glass, you're just gonna get cut all the worse, right? Like, and it's just you gotta be able to sit in it, and I love that because it's such a beautiful analogy for suffering. Like, what can we do in suffering? It's like, you know, you have to sit in it, and I think as like men, like there's something that I'm learning within that analogy here in the moment, but like just men out there listening to it can like sit with that and really learn, because it's, as men, I think we can get into this kind of false belief of like, I deal with pain well, right? Like I don't actually feel pain when I'm in pain. And it's like, well, like, is that really the best way to deal with the pain? No. It does feel infantile. It does feel like appeasing somebody who's going through a tantrum, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, more as men, like we actually got to let that emotion exist, because if we don't, then it's going to go out a couple different ways. It's either going to be displaced onto our kids and our wives through anger, or go directly inward, and all of a sudden everything's my fault. Like, I'm a shitty human being.
Yeah.
This is all my, like,
Yeah.
this is on me.
Oh, I can testify to that. Absolutely. Is I struggle very much with negative self-talk, because there are so many times in which, when I reflect, particularly going to confession, I'm like, I'll think about all the words that I've said to myself, like, in my head, and I'm like, I would never, ever say these to any human being, ever. Like, I would be like, you need to go somewhere. You need to solve something, because there's no way that you should ever treat anybody like that. But, like, me? No. Like, I'm fine perfectly, like, bashing myself interior. And I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but how do I change that?
Yeah.
So, but I'm working with a friend right now to deal with that. So to try to overcome those interior thoughts.
Yeah. It's easy to not treat ourselves well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's like a tactic of the enemy, right? Like, because it's like, if we can be trapped within ourselves, like, then we're not able to do the work that God calls us to do.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that could be
hard
to work through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, because I'm just thinking about how crazy and how smart the devil is sometimes. But, like, I was thinking about, so one of the things that was just kind of internalized from growing up was, I don't know that my parents ever taught me it, but it was something that I learned from growing up in my household was, like, if it needs more blood, it's my blood. Like, I'll sacrifice myself for the good of others. It's like, great. That's a noble intention, but, like, God sitting here saying, like, no, you're not the person who's dying on the ground and got everyone in the helicopter, and, like, you die and they all live. Like, even though that is an extremely manly approach of, like, yeah, I gave the last hurrah. It's like, yeah, great. But God wants you to be saved too.
Yeah.
But it's, and that's tricky. Yeah. Actually, that makes me think. So, fun aside.
Yeah.
So it's weird, and hopefully I don't cry on this part, because I talked about it recently with Jamie, and when I did, I started crying, and I was like, why?
Where are these emotions coming from?
But so and this is, I think, so helpful. Like, I think this would be good for guys to hear too, is, when I think about dying and being in front of the pearly gates, so coming to the judgment seat of God, I always imagine, a very, very white space, and there's, like, a nice counter or whatever it is. And there's always the typical, like, you're coming to judgment. So, like, in one sense, like, what do you have to say for yourself?
Yep.
And the analogy that I always have in my head is, I take out my heart, and it is a bloody, pulpy, purple mess. Like, it you're like, is that even a heart anymore? It doesn't look like it. And I plop it down on this white counter, and I say to God, I don't know if what I did and what I lived is right or good or true. I don't know if I met your standard, but all I can say is that I lived.
Yeah.
And that's where my thing ends, because I'm always terrified by, I don't know what the answer is. Because in one sense, like, I'm like, in a certain sense, I envy Protestants when they're like, yeah, I'm saved. And I'm like, I wish it were that easy. I wish that I could just be like, yeah, I checked the box. I did the thing. And I'm like, yeah, our relationship is far more complex than that. But also, it's like, I know that we should have a reasonable hope of salvation. Like, God doesn't want us coming around and being like, I hate this, and and I don't know, like, constantly questioning whether or not we're saved, because he doesn't want us to be a paranoid mess. But, like, in a certain sense, like, that's one of the ways that I operate.
Yeah.
And that's also why one of the things that I've emphasized to people before in theology circles is I hate when people say the poor souls in purgatory. They're not poor. For me, they're rich because they have assurance of salvation. They know that they're going to heaven. And it's like, yeah, but they're going through so much suffering. Be like, I don't care. All the suffering in the world is worth it. They know with absolute certainty that they're going to heaven. Yeah. I don't have that certainty here on earth. Like that, they're rich. They're not poor. So you can say the suffering souls in purgatory. That's fine because they are.
But not poor.
But they're not poor. They are not poor.
All right. I'll start praying for the rich souls in purgatory.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. I think it's good. Like that assurity is like something that is reassuring, especially if we have a part that's always like trying to like look for the standard. What's the standard? Am I meeting it? Am I meeting it?
Yeah.
And as guys, I think it's like we particularly like that, right? Like you show me the show me the box, I'm going to check it. Like I'll get there.
Yeah.
But there is just an irony in all of it with our faith, because it's like almost as if only when you can accept with childlike faith Christ and his sacrifice for us, then can you actually be like that man who is like suffering and letting the helicopter escape and like bleeding out. Not that like we're called to do that literally, but like
right,
like it's like the whole like you must lose your life to gain your life. Like there's an irony in it, and it's like once we accept with faith like that Christ died for me, like then I can start living for him.
Yeah.
And like there is no assurance that like absolute assurance, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
We're gonna be guaranteed heaven.
Yeah.
But we have to act like we are guaranteed heaven almost. Right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Well, there's a line that I'm always so the litany of trust. I'm always inspired. I can't remember which line it was, but one of them always makes me think of this line that I've created as kind of it ties into the litany of trust, but is God's going to ask for everything, but he won't ask for more.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, no, like if you have 100, he's going to ask for 100. He won't ask for 101. He'll ask for 100.
Yeah.
Be like, well, what if I have 120? Then he'll ask for 120, but not 121. Yeah. Like he will always ask for everything, but he will never demand more from you than what you can actually give him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's okay. So you're like, you want me to bet it all on you, Lord? And he goes, yep, all of it, nothing back. And I'm like, okay. Which is why, like, in a certain sense, that analogy that I used earlier, that like the heart, like in one sense, I feel like the Lord is already happy with that analogy because he's like, that's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
I want you to live. And he goes, don't worry about the metric. Live.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. And there's my mind's going off on a theological tangent there. Not maybe theological, but it's interesting because it's like, it's I don't know if paradox is the right word, but it's like once you've given everything, then you have more to give. And then you have like, it's like a growing number when you do choose to give everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Jacob about that, like the moving target of perfectionism, right? Or perfect.
Yeah.
Like, there's something there.
In a certain sense, I hate the word perfect.
Yeah.
I despise it because I'm like, and it was funny. Jacob and I had a meeting this morning in which we started to talk about perfection a little bit. But I wanted to tell him too, because he is very much a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's good. We need those types of people. But my thought was, this is something that I've been distinctly aware of, is that perfection cannot be reached in this life. And we have to know that, because if we don't, then we're going to get into like the Tower of Babel. We think that we can build this amazing thing without God, and be like even if you think that you can build perfection here on this earth with God, you're still misguided in the fact that God says no. Yeah. Like the kingdom of God is not going to be fully realized on this earth until he comes back.
Yeah.
And I can't control when he's coming back.
Yeah.
Therefore, it ain't going to happen here in my lifetime. Like I'm not going to see the perfection of God realized in my life. Well, again, I'm like, he could come back before I die.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm trying to get at here is we should always strive towards the ideal. and strive towards perfection.
Yeah, the C.S. Lewis quote's coming to mind where it's like, this is like not verbatim, this is more paraphrase, but it's like the whole like, I have a desire for thirst, God created water. I have a desire for food, God created food. I have a desire, I don't even think, did he mention sex in there? I have a desire for sex.
I mean, he might have.
It works, right? Like, there is a thing for the thing.
Yeah.
I have a desire for the perfect, right? There is such thing as that, but it isn't. And I think he finishes it up. Very poor.
I know what quote you're talking about because he talks about it in Mere Christianity, and he essentially echoes the. I think it's he's not quoting it, but it echoes the catechism of that. The desire for God is written on all men's hearts, and God desires that all men should be saved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. It's so good. There's a lot of reassurance in that. I think to kind of like draw towards the end to close, you already alluded to it. Like the one thing that you want to work on as a man is that idea of responding and not reacting. And I think that's huge. I think it's inspiring for me to hear because it's like I do spend a lot of time reacting. I spend a lot of time like, and then I catch myself. I feel like that's where I'm at a lot of times. It's like, okay, I'm reacting here. Like I'm on Facebook because I just got upset by something and not actually like engaging the emotion. Yeah. Is there any concrete ways that you like have been looking to specifically grow in that, or?
No, it's tough because it's still kind of abstract. It's more of like you recognize it when it happens. You're like, ah, crap.
Yeah.
Because like case in point, like last night, like I was I raised my voice at my kids, which was not. It was incredibly like anyone in my situation probably would have been the exact same like the exact same response.
Yeah.
But like I was kind of moved by like, oh, that wasn't good because Izzy started crying because of the tone of my voice. And I wasn't upset with her per se, but I was upset with the situation because it was like she was complaining that Natalia was eating her popsicle and she wasn't, but it was like, I was like, she's not going to eat your popsicle. And then she'd yell at Natalia, be like, don't eat my popsicle. We had this same conversation, I think 5 times in a row. And then I'm just like, stop it. Like just yell. Cause I'm like, we're going over the exact same ground.
Right.
We've already established this. She's not going to eat your popsicle. So it was just like, I realized like after the fact, I'm like, oh, dang it.
Yeah.
And so like later I was like, I'm sorry that I yelled at you, Izzy. I'm not like, I was not upset with you. I was upset with the situation. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Do you forgive me? And she goes, I love you, Daddy. I forgive you.
That's awesome.
So it's always like, yes. All right, good. We moved. And then I apologized to Talia too. And Talia was like, whatever. Oh, I'm supposed to oh, yes, I forgive you.
Already forgotten.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's like one that's like a great model of like, a lot of us don't get that growing up, like the idea of repair, because we're not going to be perfect parents, right? But we can repair relationships when we see there's brokenness, and I think a lot of times parents get into the mindset, myself included, at times where like I'm the parent, like I shouldn't have to like apologize, like I'm in the right here. Like, yeah, no, and I
get that.
It's a sneaky thing that comes up sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, that wasn't super modeled for me growing up. So like, it's really hard to learn how to do that. But yeah.
Well, to lower ourselves to their kids' position and like understand that like we've caused them some sort of hurt and like ask for forgiveness. Like it goes a really long way. 'Cause it's like, we can't be perfect, but we can like acknowledge that we've hurt our kids, and like then like the ball's in their court. Like, they become the human that they're called to be. And like, and I think that takes a lot of weight off of a parent. Like, should we try to be better? Should we try not to like respond with anger? Yeah, absolutely. Like, but it's gonna happen. like
right. Yeah.
And it's like we can always clean up the pieces afterwards. Like that's something we can still respond to, which is like, you know, what you did there. And I think it's something that I want to encourage guys who are listening to, take that seriously. Like, how are we like challenging ourselves to be men of action instead of like men responding to our consequences or reacting to our consequences, I should say. I think that's like an area where like we find ourselves stuck a lot of times, is just like reacting instead of choosing to actually engage in life. So that's a good example. Good something to work on for myself, for men listening. Do you want to plug anything at the end? I don't know if Galilee is something you want to plug.
I mean, it's always weird because I was like, we have a website, but Jacob has designed it so that like it's minimal. Like you can go and figure out what it is. It's gotogalilee.org, but it's like you can go to the website. After you've read it once, I don't know that you're going to go back to the website. So, but yeah, I don't have anything to plug necessarily.
Okay. We'll throw the website in there. You got a Galilee email?
I do. Nick at gotogalilee.org.
Okay. Are you cool if I throw that in the show notes
absolutely.
Too? So yeah, I'll throw Galilee in there, the website, and then if you have specific questions, you can email Nick, and I'll throw his email in the show notes as well. But it's great to have you on for the podcast.
Yep. Great to be here.
That's awesome. So, all right, thank you, everyone who's listening to this podcast, watching on YouTube, for tuning into this episode. If you guys have questions about what the Hey Brother podcast is, or have comments yourself, go ahead and comment in the YouTube section below or the Spotify section below or whatever podcast platform you're on. And then if you have questions about specifically what I do as a mentor, you can go to my website, craftedformore.com. That's where I help men become who God's created them to be, have conversations like this where we just explore different topics pertaining to us being better men. And then, I use my training as a Catholic psych mentor and partner to really help move the needle, always honoring the fact that God's the mover, the agent of change in all of this, but being alongside you in that journey to helping you become, who it is that God calls us to be. So thank you so much for listening, and catch us next time. God bless.